Hi, and welcome to This Week in MMA. I'm Nick Antonoff.
And I'm Monique St. Pierre.
And this is our brand new show where we'll bring you the biggest news, updates, and rumors in the world of mixed martial arts. And in our very first episode, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter. We're also going to talk about some of the matchups in UFC 103 that's coming up this Saturday, as well as the rumored debut of Fedor Emelianenko against Brett Rogers for Strikeforce.
So let's get right into it. This Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, the most anticipated season of Tough will make its premiere.
That's right, The Ultimate Fighter 10, which features a cast of all heavyweights, and there's going to be some very interesting characters in the house.
The biggest surprise so far seems to be Kimbo Slice.
That's right, when Kimbo was announced, that definitely surprised me. I mean, the last time we heard from the guy was when he got knocked out in 14 seconds by Seth Petrozelli at Elite XC Heat. And since then, he pretty much laid low, haven't heard much from the guy up until this announcement.
I was definitely shocked when I heard the news, and so were some of the other contestants. Here's a clip about how some of the contestants reacted.
I know for a fact this next guy that's coming is definitely a fighter. Question is he a mixed martial artist? So let's bring number 16 in.
Yes. I think Kimbo Slice, he kind of has a bounty over his head, for sure. And when he walked in, it was kind of like the sheep entering the room with a bunch of wolves, for sure.
I'm not privy to any inside information about this, but I suspect some sort of a deal was already worked out with Kimbo well before he stepped inside the Ultimate Fighter house. Simply because, you know, Dana White, he's a very smart businessman. He knows Kimbo brings ratings. Although he did talk a lot of shit about the guy before this, so I feel like the only way to justify him fighting in the UFC is to bring him up through Tough.
But Kimbo's not the only contestant in the house people are talking about. There's Roy Nelson, the former IFL champion, as well as a quartet of NFL stars that are trying their hand at mixed martial arts.
Yeah, and Nelson becomes, you know, the clear odds-on favorite to win the entire show. His record is 13-4, and he's no stranger to the more hardcore MMA fans out there.
Another interesting factor this season will be the coaches, Rashad Evans and Quentin Rampage Jackson. These guys have been at each other's throats for a while now. Page even gave up a chance at a title fight with Lyoto Machida to be able to fight Evans at the end of the year.
But some news came out recently that Rampage is actually cast as B.A. Baracus in the new A-Team movie remake. Great news for Rampage, he's going to be a movie star now, but sour news for us fans because while this pushes back his fight with Evans, it was supposed to be on December 12th in Memphis at UFC 107, but because Rampage is going to have a busy shooting schedule, he really won't be able to get in a full training camp, so that really messes everything up, and they're probably going to fight a few months later than they were scheduled to. Well, let's turn our attention now to a card in the more recent future, and that's UFC 103, headlined by Rich Franklin against Vitor Belfort at a catchweight of 195 pounds.
I like this matchup. If Franklin wins, then he's definitely in the mix for the light heavyweight championship.
Definitely. With Evans and Rampage being tied up with the Ultimate Fighter, Anderson Silva saying he won't fight Machida because they're boys. You know, the UFC's most stacked division is really lacking challengers for the title. And, you know, if Vitor wins, it sets up a really interesting matchup against him and Anderson Silva at middleweight. Now, this is Vitor's third comeback to the UFC, and I've read in an interview recently where he said he's practicing Shotokan karate with a coach.
And that's the same karate style that Machida uses.
That's right. So I'm definitely interested to see him, you know, use that against Rich Franklin in the cage.
So another great fight for 103 will be Crow Cop versus Dos Santos.
Yes.
Crow Cop is a veteran Pride fighter, but still trying to prove himself in the UFC. There's no shortage of excuses for why Miracle wasn't as dangerous in the cage as he is in the ring, but he says he's over it, looking forward, and ready to make a run for the heavyweight title.
But before he can do that, he has to get past Dos Santos. This guy is young, but very dangerous. He got on everyone's radar when he knocked out Verdum at UFC 90 with a very vicious uppercut. So I think most people are expecting a slugfest for this fight. You know, I mean, I'm curious. What are your predictions for these two fights?
Well, I'm still a novice at the sport, and I'm still learning about the fighters, but I'm gonna have to go with Belfort. His quickness with his hands, I feel like, will dominate in the ring. And Crow Cop versus Dos Santos, I'm gonna have to say Dos Santos. I really feel like he's young, he's strong, he's just a more talented fighter.
You know, I'll agree with you as far as Vitor goes, and honestly, anybody who trains karate gets bonus points in my book, so I'm going to be pulling for him, and plus I really want to see him slug it out with Anderson Silva. However, on the Dos Santos Crow Cop fight, I'll have to go with Crow Cop for no other reason than the fact that I'm a Crow Cop fan. I mean, I've been following this guy since his Pride days, and I really want to see him make another run at the heavyweight title. Dos Santos, I think the kid is great. When I saw him knock out Werdum, I was just as shocked as anybody else. And I feel he has a bright future ahead of him, and a loss to Cro Cop really won't hurt him that much. But if Cro Cop were to lose to Dos Santos, I really can't see him making a run at the heavyweight title. So I hope he has one more left in him. And the final topic we're going to talk to you about is the rumored debut of Fedor Emelianenko for Strikeforce. Now, it was recently announced that he will be fighting Brett Rogers, but what we don't know is when this fight is going to happen. Now, I heard through the grapevine that this fight might take place on October 10th, which actually would be a pretty smart move on Strikeforce's and Scott Coker's part.
That's the same date the WEC 43 will take place.
Sure.
And this will help prevent UFC from counter-programming Strikeforce because WEC is owned by the same company as the UFC, Zuffa.
But and at this point, all of these things are just rumors. We're really not sure when we're gonna see the #1 heavyweight, finally make his appearance in the cage. So hopefully it's soon.
And that's all for this week's episode and This Week in MMA. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you next week.
Yes, we do. Thank you.